Michael Jordan's first love wasn't basketball, she just came forward after 40 years in hiding. The gym was half empty, the squeak of sneakers echoing louder than the cheers. Michael Jordan wiped the sweat off his forehead and glanced at the clock. Tryouts were brutal. He'd already been cut once last year, and this time, he wasn't giving them any reason to do it again. But it wasn't just the coach he was thinking about. She was in the stands, Leah. Sitting with her notebook, legs crossed, scribbling as if basketball was background noise. She always sat alone. And for some reason, he liked that. Michael wasn't the best player on the court yet, but he was the one who stayed after everyone left. That's when she first spoke to him. "You always stay late," she said, leaning on the bleachers. "Trying to impress Coach Herring?" He grinned. "Maybe. Or maybe I just like hearing the ball hit the floor when no one else is around." She scribbled something. "That's a good line. Mind if I quote you?" And just like that, it started. They became unlikely friends, Michael, the quiet sophomore with fire in his eyes, and Leah, the girl with stories in hers. They'd meet after school. Sometimes on the bleachers, sometimes under the bleachers, if it rained. She'd read him things she was writing. He'd listen. Then she'd ask him questions no one else did. "What do you want, Mike?" Like, really want? He'd answer with a shrug. "NBA, I guess." "You don't sound sure." He looked up. "I want to matter. I want people to remember my name." Leah smiled, as if she already knew they would. As the weeks passed, he started looking for her after games, before games, even in class. She started showing up more often, always with her notebook. She wrote about school, dreams, the world, and sometimes, him. One night, after a home game, they sat in the empty stands. He'd scored the game-winning basket, and for the first time, the school crowd had chanted his name. "Feels good, huh?" she asked. Michael looked at her. "It would feel better if I knew what you wrote about me." "You'd be surprised," she said. "I don't just write about what happens. I write about why it matters." Then she leaned over and kissed him. No warning. No big setup. Just a moment. And it landed like a heartbeat. He didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then he smiled. "Do I get to read it now?" She blushed. Not yet. They were 15. The world felt like it was waiting for them. Until it wasn't. Just after Christmas, Leah didn't show up for school. Then not the next day either. On the third day, Michael asked around. Her friends didn't know. Her locker was emptied out. Rumors flew. By lunch, he found out Leah's dad had taken a job up in Pennsylvania. They left overnight. No goodbye. No warning. Michael ran to the gym. He asked Coach Herring if he'd seen her. No. Then he checked under the bleachers. Nothing. Not even a note. He waited there until the janitor kicked him out. The next few weeks blurred. He played harder than ever. Angrier, sharper. Every layup felt like it was aimed at the person who took her away. He didn't talk about her. Not once. Not to teammates. Not to his brothers. And especially not to his parents. But the silence didn't erase her. One afternoon, he was getting ready for practice when he saw something strange. A folded piece of paper inside his locker, old, worn, and yellowed at the edges. His name was on it in handwriting he couldn't mistake. His heart jumped. But when he unfolded it, it wasn't the full note. It was torn, just one sentence left. If you ever need to find me, I'll be waiting. Love always. That was it. No signature. No return address. The rest had been ripped away. He asked around. Nobody knew anything. One teammate smirked but denied touching anything. Coach told him to focus. That season was important. Michael never saw Leah again. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that the full letter had been hidden. Taken. By someone who never liked him. A kid named Barry. He'd always been jealous, especially since Leah started hanging around. Barry had seen the letter, swiped it from the locker, and later ripped it in half when no one was around. Michael assumed Leah had left without caring. And that she didn't love him after all. So he cut that piece out of his heart, and he filled it with basketball. He trained harder. Longer. He made the varsity team that year. By junior year, he was the talk of the state. Every dunk, every buzzer beater, was him outrunning the ghost of Leah. By the time college recruiters came calling, he didn't think of her anymore. At least, that's what he told himself. He dated other girls. Won other games. Got famous. But every now and then, he'd hear a song they used to slow dance to, or pass a girl with a red notebook in her hands, and the air would feel heavier for a moment. He never told anyone about her. Because to him, Leah was just one of those things you leave in high school. Until 40 years later, when she came back, and reminded the whole world that not everything stays buried forever. The talk show set buzzed with quiet tension. Stage lights beamed down as the camera zoomed in. The host smiled into the lens, delivering the kind of tease that drew millions. Tonight, an exclusive you won't believe. Michael Jordan's first heartbreak, finally stepping forward. After 40 years. The audience leaned forward. No one expected her. Not this woman. Not now. Leah stepped onto the stage, clutching an envelope. Her hair had streaks of gray, her eyes calm but heavy with old weight. She wasn't here for fame. She wasn't here to stir up gossip. She was here for the truth. The host welcomed her, then got straight to it. Why now? Leah looked straight ahead. Because people forget that behind every legend, there was once just a kid. And sometimes, that kid was in love. A hush swept over the audience. She pulled out a black and white photo and held it up. Two teenagers at a high school dance, one unmistakably Michael Jordan, in a loose suit, awkward smile. Next to him, Leah, arms wrapped around his. The crowd gasped. The image went viral within minutes. The host blinked. That's you and MJ? Leah nodded. Sophomore year. Wilmington. He didn't even start for the varsity team yet. But I knew he was going places. She told the story, how they met, how they talked for hours under the bleachers, how she kissed him after a win, how they'd planned to meet at prom. How everything changed when her father moved them overnight. I wrote him a letter, she said. Left it in his gym locker. Told him where I was going. Gave him the address. I waited for a reply, and waited. She paused. Then I assumed he forgot me. The host leaned in. Michael says he never got it. Leah blinked, her voice steady. I know. I found out years later that someone took the letter. A classmate who didn't want me and Michael together. The host's jaw dropped. You're saying someone interfered? Yes. He confessed before he died. He ripped it in half and threw the rest away. A wave of shock moved through the audience. The truth was crueler than fiction. But here's the part no one saw coming, Leah said. 10 years ago, I started a youth program back in Wilmington. It's small. Just basketball and books. I never told anyone this, but it's been funded for years by the Jordan Family Foundation. The host stared, stunned. You're saying Michael's been funding your program and didn't even know it? Leah nodded slowly. He had no idea. The foundation donated through a local partner. He never knew it was me. I never told. Social media exploded. Fans dug into the story. News outlets ran with it. Headlines blared, Michael Jordan's long-lost first love reveals truth on live TV. Later that night, Leah sat backstage, alone with her tea, when a producer knocked. Someone sent a video response. It's from Michael. Her hand shook slightly as she took the tablet. She pressed play. Michael appeared on screen, older now but just as intense. No press setup, no flashy background. Just him in what looked like a home office. "Leah," he began. "Didn't think I'd be hearing that name again." He smiled faintly. "I remember everything. The dance. The notebook. Even that kiss after the home game. I just thought, you left. No goodbye. No call. Just gone." He looked down. "Now I know the truth. And I don't know what to say except, thank you. For believing in me before anyone else did. And for doing what you've done for those kids." He paused. "That photo hit me hard. Not because of what we lost, but because of what I forgot to carry with me." Then his expression softened. "If you're still in Wilmington, I'll be coming down. Some debts go beyond basketball." The screen faded to black. Backstage, Leah just sat there, staring at the still frame of his face. A week later, Wilmington buzzed with rumors. Some said MJ was flying in on a private jet. Others thought it was all a stunt. But early one morning, a black SUV rolled up to a tiny gym with cracked windows and a rusted basketball hoop out front. Out stepped Michael Jordan. No press. No entourage. Just him. Inside, a dozen kids were shooting around. Coaches froze. One boy dropped the ball and whispered, "Is that?" Leah stepped out of her office, holding a clipboard. She saw him, and time paused. She didn't cry. He didn't either. They just stood there for a moment that didn't need words. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out something folded. "I got this last week," he said. "From Barry's sister. She found it in his box of old junk after he passed." He handed her the other half of the letter. It was her handwriting. Complete. All the words he never got to read. She held it with trembling fingers. "I thought it was gone." Michael gave a slight nod. "Me too." They sat on the bleachers again, just like before. The same gym, different lives. He watched the kids play. Leah pointed out one boy who could barely shoot a month ago and now couldn't miss. Michael watched in silence. "You were right," Leah said. "Some names are remembered forever." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Outside, someone took a photo through the cracked gym door. MJ and Leah, side by side again, watching the next generation. It wasn't about love rekindled. It was about two people who had been torn apart and finally got to put the pieces back together. The community gym hadn't seen this much life in years. Flyers had gone out quietly, no national news, no social media hype, just word of mouth around Wilmington. Michael Jordan was coming home. It wasn't a press stunt. It wasn't for cameras or a documentary. It was for Leah. And for the kids she'd been mentoring long before anyone knew her name. The charity game wasn't about who won. It was about who showed up. Former players, high school coaches, teachers, and kids from rough blocks packed the bleachers. The court was worn, but the energy felt fresh. Local kids wore shirts that read "Believe First," a slogan Leah had written on the chalkboard her very first day at the youth center. Michael walked in with no fanfare. Just a duffel bag, his old Laney High warm-up jacket, and that focused look in his eyes that hadn't changed since the 80s. He gave a nod to the crowd and stepped onto the court. People clapped. But it wasn't the usual roar he was used to. It was respect. Real, quiet, grounded. Leah was already there. She didn't wear anything fancy, just a black tee with the center's logo and jeans. She walked over as the crowd hushed. The game hadn't even started, but the moment belonged to them. Michael reached into his pocket. "I've been carrying this since I got it back," he said, pulling out the full letter, now taped together but intact. "This time." I read every word. Leah took a breath. "It was never supposed to end like that." He nodded. "But we're still here." He raised his voice slightly, just enough for the people in the first few rows to hear. You were my first win. Not a game. You. Leah looked away for a second, overwhelmed, but held it together. Then let's give these kids one too, she said, motioning toward the crowd of teens waiting for the game to start. The game kicked off. Michael didn't go full NBA mode. He passed more than he shot, coached more than he played. He laughed. He gave high fives. He watched the kids light up just from being on the same court. Midway through the second half, he called for a timeout. Everyone paused, confused. He walked over to the announcer's table and tapped the mic. I've done a lot of big things in my life, he said. Won championships, played on dream teams, built brands. But nothing beats building people. He looked at Leah, then at the kids. So today, in honor of Leah and everything she's done for this city, I'm launching a scholarship. The first Light Grant. It'll go to any kid from Wilmington who works hard, helps their community, and believes in their own shot, even if the world doesn't. The gym erupted. Leah covered her mouth, stunned. He wasn't done. I'm also renovating this place, he continued. New courts, new gear, mentorship programs. Whatever Leah needs, she gets. You've done enough in the shadows. Tears welled in Leah's eyes, but she smiled through it. Michael handed her the mic. She paused before speaking. This started with heartbreak, she said. But it never stopped being about hope. I didn't come forward to be seen. I came forward so these kids know it's okay to love something and lose it. It's okay to keep building anyway. The kids clapped. A few parents wiped tears. The game resumed. The atmosphere was lighter now, like everyone had just watched two lives settle something that had gone unresolved for too long. After the final buzzer, no one cared about the score. The kids ran up to Michael for autographs and photos. He smiled, took pictures, even signed someone's old Nike. Leah stood near the sideline, watching the moment unfold. One of her volunteers came up to her. You okay? I think, she said softly, this is what closure feels like. Later, when most people had left, Michael and Leah sat outside on the gym steps. The night air was cooler now. Crickets chirped in the distance. You know, he said, I used to think forgetting you helped me become who I am. But that's not true. She looked at him. You didn't fuel my fire, he continued. You started it. Leah laughed gently. Guess we both turned out all right. He stood up and looked back at the gym. It's strange. I've played in the biggest arenas in the world. But this place feels more real than all of them. They didn't make any promises about what came next. They didn't talk about picking up where they left off. That wasn't the point. This was never about a love story in the traditional sense. It was about unfinished pages finally being read. About the first person who believed in greatness before the world caught on. As Michael left, he gave Leah a long hug. Keep writing, he said. Kids need your words more than they need my dunks. And you, she replied, don't ever stop showing up like this. He nodded, walked to his SUV, and disappeared into the night. Back inside the gym, Leah stood alone at center court. She looked up at the old scoreboard, now turned off, and smiled. Sometimes, the final score doesn't tell the real story. The letter had finally been read. The heartbreak finally healed. And the kids, well, they had courts now. Scholarships. And a reason to believe that even the greatest of all time was once just a teenager, sitting in these same stands, hoping someone saw his worth.